Next topic, we've got my top 10 wish list for 2023. So same format as the top 10 pickups of 2022, only now we're looking forward. What are the things I hope to find this year? Some of them aren't too bad, really. Some of them are god-awful, and that's just the truth. But I think it's a good thing when you're putting together a wish list. It's great to have big stretch goals on there. It's great to have more attainable goals. It's good to have things that maybe price prohibitive a little bit, that's the stretch. And then also things that are availability restrictive, where it's something you got to hunt for. It's not something you just stroll into every show and find. I think just being able to chase a variety of different things to where you can put your energy in over here. When you get burnt out on that, you can, chase this thing over there. Just being able to pivot and stay fresh and not getting, burnt out or disenfranchised when that one thing, the precious you can't get your hands on, I think helps you be a healthier collector. It keeps you from getting beat down and demoralized within the hobby. So that's kind of what I'm thinking first off. And I'm looking, I think I messed my numbering up, but that's okay. It'll be fine. We'll get through it. Number 1, Darkwing Duck, number 1. It's actually kind of a hard book to find. The thing with that is it's a kid's comic, right? You don't give anything to a kid. I don't care if it's a concrete block that you expect to get back in the same shape you gave it to them in. I don't have kids, but from what I understand, they're dirty, they smell funny, and they destroy things. I mean, I have dogs. They kind of do the same stuff. But when it comes to collectible paper that's gone through the hands of a child, you're kind of hard-pressed to find really nice-looking copies of some of these things. But I did grow up in that Disney after-school, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck. That whole world was that of my younger days. So the nostalgia for Tailspin and Darkwing Duck is real for me. And I'm not ashamed to admit I have gone back and watched some of the episodes on Disney Plus since that was a thing. No shame in my game when it comes to the Darkwing Duck. So hopefully I can find that one this year. Number 2, this one's kind of weird. It's not my usual bag, really. And honestly, I don't really know that much about it, but Dawn was another one of those characters, kind of like She and Evil Ernie and Scud, that was really hot in the Wizard top 10s or hot 10s back in the day. And it's just always one of those things that I'm like, why not? It's cool. It just sticks out to me in my mind. And it's another one of those things that's not readily available. I've seen maybe a couple of them over the years. But a lot of that small press stuff you just don't see. It's not nearly as available as your Big Two or your Image or, the copious amounts of Valiant that are out there sitting in boxes just looking for good homes like sad puppies. But Cry for Dawn number 1 is the first appearance of Dawn. Dawn number 1 is the much more prevalent issue from Sirius Comics. You can find that pretty easy. I think it's only like a $5 book, but this Cry for Dawn number 1, which is her actual first appearance, is a bit more valuable book. It's usually somewhere around 150 and $200 when I see it. And if you're into kind of that high fantasy art, I mean, I would say it's moderately exploitative as far as her action hero garb. I don't think that's what I'd wear into battle, but you got like some demons and stuff happening there. It's kind of crazy. So I'm down with that. So yeah, Cry for Dawn, number 1, number 2 on the list. Number 3, this is probably one of the first stretch books, just because it's not one you come across a lot, and that's Strange Tales 89. It's the first appearance of Fing Fang Foom. So this is a pre-hero Atlas book. Of course, we would get the Human Torch would start his own series in issue 101, so about a year after this one came out. But at this point in time, Strange Tales is just like a sci-fi, just random story anthology book. You usually have 3 or 4 stories inside, and this one just happened to be that of Fing Fang Foom. It's been on a bit of a trajectory in the last couple of years, but I think it's starting to come back down to where it's not just completely terrible. But still, even with some of the give back, it's a book that if you have it, you can kind of set your price to a certain extent. You don't have to put the FMV on it if you necessarily want to, just because a lot of times if you're the guy in the room with one, you're the only guy in the room with one. It's not one of those books that you're going to walk into a show, like a ASM 300 or something like that, where you're going to have multiple copies to choose from. So Strange Tales 89, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but it's my number 3 wish for this year. My number 4 book is Captain America 100. Honestly, I can't believe I haven't bought a collection that has one of these in it yet. I cannot tell you how many Doctor Strange 169s, Captain Marvel 1s, Iron Man 1s, literally every other one of these big premiere issue books that came out was like April or May of 68. I've had, no kidding aside, half dozen copies or more of every one of them. I've never had a single Captain America 100. And I don't know why. I've owned more Tales of Suspense 99s than I have Captain America 100s. And I realized saying I had none, that's a pretty low bar to cross. But no, I've had again another handful of TOS 99s. I don't know what the deal is. This book avoids me like the plague, so sooner or later I'll find one and we'll add it to the collection. And lastly, number 5, so the rounding out the top half or the first half of my want list for 2023 is Vault of Horror number 12. It's the first EC horror book. And us EC guys, we love to qualify all this crap. So Vault of Horror 12 was the first issue published as a horror title by EC. There had been horror stories in previous books, but those were crime books. So those stories did well enough. They're like, all right, let's go all in on this. So Vault of Horror 12 is that first horror book. It's not the greatest cover. It is Johnny Craig, but compared to some of the stuff he'd be churning out, 3 and 4 years later, this thing's pretty mild. It's just, a guy who might get pulled apart by a medieval torture device. That's not bad. It's not like he's cutting anybody's head off. But one of the books that almost made my top 10 list of books I picked up in 2022 was Vault of Horror 12. Vault of Horror 13 is one of my favorite issues I've had for a while. So 12 is kind of the direction I'm heading in to just round out those earliest issues of Vault of Horror. All right. Now, number 6 spot is incredibly vague. I want a 9.2 ASM slab. What's that mean? Well, one of the things I've been doing since I finished the ASM run, so I have Amazing Spider-Man 1 through whatever the most recent issue is. I have all of them. But one of the things I've been doing is I want to go back and I want to build a high grade set of 1 through 100. Now, high grade is relative. When you're in the lower numbers, like 1 through 5, I want like a 6.0, and then 6 through 20, I want 8.0s. 21 to 100, I want 9.2 copies of every ASM book. And I've got quite a few, but it's been a little while since I bought one. So like, here's an example. Make this a little bigger for you. Here's an example of one of the books. I'm a huge Green Goblin fan. Love me some John Romita. So this was one of the first ones I chased down. ASM 39, 9.2, white pages. And that's the one qualifier I guess I didn't throw out there. It's not just a 9.2. It needs to have off-white, white, or white pages because I hate myself that much. It's funny to be laughed at by guys like the team from Dave and Adams when they hand you a 9.2 Amazing Spider-Man book from 1965, and you look at it, you hand it back to them and say it's not good enough. They're just like, what? It's an interesting spot to be in. But ideally, I put ASM 23 here. Like I said, huge Green Goblin guy. I'd love to get some of the Goblin books checked off, whether it's 23, 26, 27. Just want to get back on that horse and chip away at that a little bit. Number 7 is Crime Patrol 16. This book is a big regret of mine. I had a chance to buy a copy or two 5 or 6 years ago for just a few $100s, like $300 to $500, and just didn't get it done for whatever reason. And this book, along with the next book and a lot of the early EC stuff, have just gone to the moon since then. So if I am able to find one of these, it's going to cost me a lot more than what it would have back then, naturally. But this is a great Johnny Craig cover. I actually kind of, I didn't do it any favors with how these images are stacked, but there's actually like a ghostly hand here that's turning on this light switch. That's why the lady looks so shocked. There's, anytime a disembodied body part starts turning on and off things in your home, it's okay to be scared. But this is the second Crypt of Terror, second Crypt Keeper, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I can't remember if he crossed over, but great book. One that I've been on the hunt for a while, as is the number 8 book, which is Crime Patrol 15, which is the first appearance of the Crypt Keeper. It's a book that really went nuts. It's getting better. I think some of the sales recently have brought out some more copies, which kind of help the price level out to where it's more reasonable. Most of what I see when I do come across these books is people just have the I don't want to sell it price parked on eBay. So it's like $3.0 for $9,000. Well, thank you, but no. That's just unreasonable. But I grew up watching Tales from the Crypt, the heavily edited after SNL syndicated episodes. So I've loved Tales from the Crypt since I was a little kid. So being able to put that first appearance of the Crypt Keeper in my PC is high on my list. Number 9. So the second to last thing I'm looking for this year. This is something I didn't know that existed until, I don't know, the last couple months, I'd say at most. And I think it was actually a Bleeding Cool article of all places that tipped me off to it. But they're the TMNT, so the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle serial books. And essentially what they were little mini comics that came sealed in envelopes and were distributed in boxes of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cereal from back in the day. The interesting thing about these 3 mini books, you've got some first appearances in there. Like it's not just trash. There's actually things that happen. This number 1 right here, it's the first time in a comic form, a printed comic form, that Baxter Stockman has been mutated into the Fly. When we see him in the Mirage books, he's still just a scientist that makes the mousers. So it's got some significance, because when most people think of Baxter Stockman, whether it's from the video games or the cartoons, they think of this, and the toys, they think of this Fly looking dude. And this is actually the first appearance of him in that form. So that's really cool. And then one of the other books is the first appearance of like Ray Fillet or Fillet Ray. They changed the name, but the Manta Ray looking dude from the TMNT universe. But this is just the kind of obscure, neat little thing that I think would be fun to collect. When you need to take one of those detours away from just regular everyday comic stuff, that's the kind of stuff that is fun to chase. And then last but not least, the number 10, or the primary book that I have on my want list for 2023 is the big dog, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1, a first print. Been questing after this book for a while now. Had some missteps, but it's coming. It's on a return trajectory from the moon, which is nice to see. We did have a copy sell, a CGC 8.0 sold for $18,000 yesterday on Heritage, which was strong. I was hoping it was going to stick closer to like 15. So good for the seller. Not quite where I'd hoped to see that price at, but you know, it is what it is. There's not a lot of them, and 8.0 is a pretty solid grade for that book. And if I have to settle for a 7.0 or a 7.5, you know, it's not going to kill me. But that is something that's been on the list for a while. And I'm getting down to the point where there were some Mirage books. I'm like, I don't really want these. I think it's silly. I don't need those specifically. That referencing like number 1 4th print, number 1 5th print. You know, at that point, who really cares? They're not the original cover, so that was kind of a turnoff for me. But now that I've got to where I have literally every other Mirage issued TMNT book from 1 to 62 of that original series, except for number 1 4th, number 1 5th, and the NYCC variant of number 3. And then obviously the number 1 first print I don't have. I'm like, you know, it's kind of dumb to stop when that's all you have left. So I'm sure I'll be chasing those down too. So that will be a story for another day, though. So that's my 2023 want list. You know, let me know, what are you looking for this year? What's kind of the big book that's on your radar? What do you hope to find? And you know, I hope you're able to track them down. And if you're not able to find it, hopefully you find something else that's cool before this year is over. We still got a lot of time, so hopefully it's a good one.